Incredible. The Sanhedrin concludes by advising that the verse from the prophet Isaiah, let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks, and they will not learn war anymore, that is engraved on the United Nations wall, will never be realized by way of the Goldstone Report and the traditional policy of the UN regarding the state of Israel. Instead, your welcome action, as advised above, is anxiously awaited by all mankind. You have the power to help contribute to the prevention of wars. I think this is interesting too. On the wall of the UN, there is a Bible verse, and it's the one I just quoted. You will beat your swords into plowshares and your spears into pruning hooks. Now go back to the prophet Joel. He says, God says he's going to bring a suit against all the nations of the earth. Very similar to what Sanhedrin did, only God will have teeth with his. And he's bringing them down there because they divided the land and because they cheapened and sold his people. Verse 3, they've cast lots for my people. Now, the interesting way that this has been fulfilled is that the UN has made, it's been around since 1948, and 1/3 of their time has been voting on resolutions basically condemning Israel for this or that or the other thing. You know, anyone want to condemn Israel for terrorism? Yes, they cast law, they vote on it. And there's been like 500 condemnations of Israel. It's amazing. No condemnations of people like Yasser Arafat. He was actually given the Nobel Prize, and he actually lectured the UN with a pistol strapped to his hip, and they all stood and gave him a standing ovation. God's going to bring the world into a suit, and stuff like that is actionable by God. They cast lots for my people. They sold a boy literally for a harlot and a girl for wine. Okay, they sold out a boy and a girl for a harlot and wine. Okay, well, now what does that mean? The way that I believe that is a very modern thing too is that, you know, as long as terrorism was just confined to Israel, nobody even had a war on terrorism. No one even cared about terrorism. In fact, they lionized the terrorists like Yasser Arafat. The terrorists actually showed up in Munich in 1972 and wiped out the Israeli athletic team of the Olympics. They even let them get away. The Germans let them get away. So if it wouldn't bother the world that Israel is going to be terrorized, well, why? Why are they selling people out? Boys and girls, families, buses, pizza parlors. Why? Because you got to keep that oil going. They sold a boy and girl for wine or for a harlot. Who's the biggest harlot in the world next to the Catholic Church is the Saudi Arabians. Keep it going. They sold them out. Don't think that God didn't see that. Don't think that God has not taken note of that. And then he looks up and says, what have you to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coasts of Palestine? Will you render me a recompense? And if you recompense me, swiftly and speedily will I return your recompense upon your own head. What's this about? Tyre and Sidon is the southern coast of Lebanon. The southern coast of Lebanon is not even controlled by the Lebanese. It's controlled by the Hezbollah, the party of God, Shiite Islam, which bombs them continuously for the last 3 years. God speaks directly to them. You're going to pay me back? You're going to avenge me? You're going to get vengeance on me? He said, I'm going to get vengeance on you. What about Palestine? Palestine is Gaza. The Gaza Strip is the Palestinian Authority. It's run by a terrorist group called Hamas. The name means violence. God looks up at them because, see, the Tyre and Sidon, the southern Lebanon, the head of Hezbollah is a man named Nasrallah. I know this, you know, just bear with me. Nasrallah is a boastful, outspoken, boastful person who has made great boasts about the God of Israel. And because he thinks he ran them out of Lebanon and he ran them out of Gaza. And every time we force Israel to make concessions, Nasrallah speaks up and takes credit like he did this great thing. God speaks to this boastful man here. God speaks to these boastful people and threatens them with their destruction. He says, because you've taken my silver and my gold and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. Yes, they set up mosques where there used to be Christian churches or Jewish synagogues. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have you sold unto the Grecians, that you might remove them from their border. Behold, I'll raise them out of the place where you sold them, and I'll return your recompense on your head. And I'll sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabians, to a people far off, for the Lord has spoken it. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Now he speaks to the Gentiles in this last day. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. And here's an amazing scripture, verse 10. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Notice it's backwards. In the UN building has Isaiah 2:4, but it's got it the right way, the way we want it, the way it will be in the golden day. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Tanks will be tractors on that day. But God says, before the great and terrible day of the Lord, he turns it around to the UN. He's speaking to them. I'm speaking to the nations, he's saying. That's what the Gentiles are, the nations. And what he says to them is, hey, you better get ready for war. You better beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks you better make into spears, because you're coming into a war. And he says, assemble yourselves, come all ye heathen, all ye nations, gather yourself together round about. There cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the heathen be wakened, and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. For there I will sit to judge all the nations round about. The final battle is at the valley of Jehoshaphat. By the way, the word Jehoshaphat means God will judge.